Hi, folks, and welcome to White Collar Week. It's the isolation that destroys us. The solution is in community. Today on the podcast, we have my dear friend, Babz Rawls Ivy. Many of you know Babz as she is my co-host on our radio show and podcast, Criminal Justice Insider. We are in our 4th season of Criminal Justice Insider, still the only regularly scheduled criminal justice radio program in Connecticut, although we have on many national justice-related guests as well. Trigger alert. In this episode, we go deep into Babz's story of childhood abuse and trafficking. We also discuss Babz's life since, from attending Barber-Scotia College, an historically black college in the South, voter registration with Andrew Young and Rev Jesse Jackson, earning a Master of Public Administration at Baruch College in New York City, rape crisis counseling, and then as an alderman in New Haven, where she ran afoul of the law. After serving time in Danbury Federal Prison, Babz went on to be lifted up and serve as editor of the inner city newspaper in New Haven, radio show host, and board member of many arts and justice nonprofits in New Haven. So coming up, Babz Rawls Ivy, my friend, on White Collar Week. I hope you will join us. Hello, and welcome to White Collar Week, a podcast sponsored by Progressive Prison Ministries, the world's first ministry serving the white-collar justice community. I'm Jeff Grant, co-founder and your host. I served almost 14 months in a federal prison for a white-collar crime I committed when I was a lawyer, so I know that it's the isolation that kills us, and the solution is in community. So let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to White Collar Week. Often I say that it's a special show, but this is really a special show because we have my dear friend and partner in radio and compadre in so many things in life, Babz Rawls Ivy with us. And reading her bio would be almost ridiculous because it's so large and has so many things. But I will tell you that she's a nonprofit board member on a bunch of different nonprofits in New Haven and Connecticut. She's one of the great 8 that were the inaugural admittees to the Connecticut Criminal Justice Hall of Fame. It has its own actual name, but she is the editor of what's the name of the newspaper? Babz.
Inner City News.
Inner City News. She's the editor of Inner City News. Forgive me, a little senior moment there. And she has a radio show on WNHH in New Haven 5 days a week that everybody knows her from. And twice a month, she and I do our Criminal Justice Insider radio show and podcast together. We are in our 4th season right now. And topically, Babz also committed and went to prison for white collar crime. So that's a lot of stuff we have in common in different ways. But I've invited her to be with us today because we're going to go deep into Babz. And Babz is generally the interviewer, but today she's the interviewee. So hello, Babz, my dear. How are you?
Hello, Jeff, my love. I'm so proud of you. This is such a good concept. And I've been watching and I've enjoyed what you've been able to pull together. So high five to you.
You know, creating something normative out of something as difficult as criminal justice issues, and just making it part of the regular conversation, right? I mean, it happens to people. Sometimes they go to prison, they come home, they got to start their lives again. Mm-hmm. But we create such drama around it, mm-hmm. And
we do,
and the media does especially. So I just want the opportunity to get real, especially with you, and tell us about your life and your background, where you grew up. And what your influences were. And let's start from there because you are fascinating beyond compare.
Oh, I don't think so, but all right. I will say this. I think you doing this with folks gives people an opportunity to sort of see that the story of somebody going to jail for committing a crime is not the end of the story. It's not even the beginning of the story. It's just a part of a story. And so you've done a great job of sort of um, putting people's stories right up front in people's faces so that we don't forget people. Can't, we're in a cancel culture. And we're quick to cancel people if they don't perform to our expectations. So I just wanted to make sure I say that.
Well, thank you, my love. So,
I
why don't we go all the way back? Tell us where you grew up, what kind of family you came from, and what and kind of what led you all the way up to your beauty queen days.
You know what? I'm from New Haven. I grew up in New Haven. My parents were married in their 20s. Actually, where I live now, I live around the corner from some of my earliest years of being a kid. I live around the corner from that. So my parents had 5 children. I had 3 brothers and a sister. I had a brother that passed um, um, from sudden infant syndrome, death syndrome.
Yeah.
So that stayed with my family till now. Like we still, my younger brothers and sisters weren't around, so they don't know anything about that. Let's see. I grew up in a house with a mother and a father. They both worked. Blue collar people. My father worked at Winchester, Olin Firearms. The people that made the repeating arms. The gun. My mother worked in a commercial laundry. A lot of the women in her day were domestics. She was a domestic sometime. We moved to Church Street South when I was maybe 10, about 10 years old. And I think those, and when I was about 10 or 12, 10, 11, my household became very violent. My father had a very serious drinking problem, very violent house. I mean, other than the violence, it was a normal household, but grew up with a lot of violence. My father, beat my mother, and then he turned on us and that kind of thing. My father was, I think as I think about it now, he was quite a brilliant man with a like a 6th grade education. He was an avid reader, very charming man, by all accounts, quite attractive, very handsome, had lots of friends, knew lots of people. But he had a very dark side, very, very dark side. My father sexually assaulted me when I was about, I don't know, 12. About 12, and then started passing me around to his friends for money when I was about 12. By the time I was 15, I was able to sort of talk about it and tell, and it came to an end. But it didn't come to an end with like police charges or anything like that. It just came to an end when the family came together and just sort of removed him out of the household, that kind of thing. But my parents never divorced. They separated. I went off to college. When I went off to college, my mother took care of him. My father had gotten cancer, and so she took care of him for a time until she couldn't take care of him anymore. And then he died. He died maybe 10 years ago. So that's the story in a nutshell. So I grew up in a very tumultuous, violent household, but at the same time, a very caring, loving household. I didn't want for stuff like, even though we were poor, I never really felt poor until I was until I was a grown up. I didn't feel poor in those days. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where we all knew each other. We knew people. I knew my neighbors. I had friends who I grew up with. So it was very close knit community at Church Street South. And if you know anything about New Haven, Church Street South doesn't exist anymore. It has been torn down. It was the housing development across the street from the train station.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know anything about Union Station and that particular part of town, the police department sits on one end, the train station sits on the other end,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's direct access to downtown New Haven. So it is no longer there. It has been torn down, and they're looking to build some other kind of housing, mixed use, mixed income housing there. But for me, it was a wonderful place.
Did you ever have a reconciliation or anything restorative with your father? I mean, did you ever,
No.
you ever able to talk about it ever?
No. There was never any reconciliation. There was never, I don't think I would have, at this point in my life, no. There was no conversation about this. It was never discussed. It was shut down. And I think the things that my family would say to me was like, well, it's in the past, move on from it.
Mm.
There was no therapeutic support. There was no, I was just expected to just move on from it. And I did move on from it. That's not the healthiest thing to do.
No.
It's not wise. It's not good. It's not sane. But move on, I did.
But I can see how it informs your empathy now. And because on our radio show, we have a lot of people who grew up in similar circumstances, difficult circumstances. And I see you relate to them, on this kind of unconscious, subconscious level where you're able to ask, questions that are probing but not hurtful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I like conversation. Like I believe everybody has a story. I like other people's stories. I'm always fascinated how people come through adversity and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, our show, people have to survive the best way that they can. So I'm always interested in that. I don't know if my story is a survival story. It's just a story that I always feel like I'm still coming through it, even though I've made peace with it. Mm-hmm. But it's not a story that you can be done with. It's not a happily ever after story. Yeah. But I am happily ever after. So there's that.
So you go off to college. Where did you go to college?
I went to college in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
A little historically Black college called Barber-Scotia College, where Mary McLeod Bethune went to college. And if you know anything about Mary McLeod Bethune, she was an advisor to several presidents. She started Bethune-Cookman in Florida. So Google her. She's an amazing, prolific woman, way ahead of her time.
And what did you learn there in terms of your self-actualization? I mean, you're coming from the streets of New Haven, and now you're in a completely different environment, and that's probably and I'm jumping ahead because I know you, but it's probably a time where you're starting to feel your intelligence and the parts of you that might have been somewhat stifled.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was the best thing I could have done for myself. Mm-hmm. Because Concord is, just outside of Charlotte. Charlotte is the big city. Mm-hmm. Concord is like a suburban, and I was there a few years ago when I took my daughter off to college. Mm-hmm. My daughter went to Bennett, which is about 45 minutes away from where I went to school. And it's so built up. Concord, North Carolina, beautiful. Like I could live there now. It's so beautiful. But I mean, going off to college is the best thing for me. It really gave me an opportunity to be on my own, to grow, to become, to dream big, and to learn. I've never, coming from Connecticut and going to the South with its own awakening, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, my grandparents were from the South, so I've been in the South. I spent my summers in the South,
Mm-hmm.
but to live there full on was a whole different kind of thing. And to be with other Black kids, from all walks of life. I've never seen well-to-do Black kids, rich Black kids. I knew poor Black kids because I was one of them, but
Mm-hmm.
I never had any interaction with rich Black kids, and so that was fascinating to me. That kind of money, that kind of affluence with Black people. So it was wonderful. I got to do a lot of cool things. I got to do art, and I got to do drama and debate, and I got to do spoken word. And I mean, I really made lifelong friends. I pledged a sorority. I mean, I got to do some really cool stuff in those 4 years. And it really was the foundation for what I would do for the rest of my life. I went off to school to be a doctor. I was in a science program,
Mm-hmm.
but I got caught up in politics, in protest, and so my academic advisor said, you have talent, but your heart is not in this. You might want to find another major. And so I chose another major. I got out of science and chose a business major. So I ultimately graduated with a degree in business administration with a concentration in marketing and advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is a far cry from medicine, but that gave me opportunity to like join the NAACP and do student government and do all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me time to see some of the South and do voter registration. I did voter registration with Andrew Young and Reverend Jackson in the South.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I got to do that under the Student Government Association.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't pursue medicine because it required so much time in the lab that I just couldn't do because I wanted to be on the front lines.
Well, you're a people person. We know that. So
yes, the lab just wasn't my thing. I loved being on the front lines and protesting and marching and registering people to vote, and that was an amazing time.
it turned out to be pretty prescient and prophetic as things evolved, because one, you stayed on the front lines of a lot of things, but registering people to vote is, especially in the South, is up to date. I mean, that's the thing. You only have to go back a few weeks in order to understand how important that is.
Yes, and yes. And it's funny to 30 years ago, and the same issues are still pressing 30 years. People still, we're still trying to get people out to vote. We're still registering people to vote. We're still engaging people to exercise their right to vote. And it's still as exciting as it was 30 years ago. It's equally exciting now. And now, you really see the fruition of what voting can do and how it can change the dynamic of a community and a state.
Yeah. While we're on that topic, you and I are both residents of Connecticut, and I don't take for granted the ability to vote for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Connecticut, for those who don't know, in Connecticut, as soon as you are out of parole, you can vote. And,
yes.
And because I was a federal prison, as was Babz. We don't have parole. We're on probation. And in probation, you can vote. So Babz, I don't know if I ever told you the story. So I got out of prison in 2007, and they had just recently changed the law, but within that year. And I was on home confinement, staying with a friend in New Canaan, which wasn't a bad place to be on home confinement. And I wanted to register to vote. So I walked down because I couldn't drive. I wasn't allowed to drive. So I walked down to the town hall and I went to the registrar of voters. And I walked in and I said, I'm a felon. I just got out of prison a couple of weeks ago. And I want to register to vote. And this guy's like 75 years old. And he looks at me like this, right? And then he turns around to other people in the office and he screams at the top of his lungs. He goes, "We got our first one." So I was the first person in New Canaan, Connecticut to register as a felon.
And they announced it.
He announced it. So there's my little claim. There's my 15 minutes of fame.
I mean, that really is a wonderful thing in Connecticut, because I was very concerned about that when I came out. And then when I found out that I could register to vote, because I was just on probation, and I had served my time, they were like, "Yeah, you can vote." I was like, "Really?"
So
I thought I had lost my right.
So why don't we jump into you're through college now. Why don't we jump into kind of your professional career, where you went? I know you went on to grad school too. So fill us in kind of like, and we're now in the time period up until you got into some trouble. So I know that's a lot of years, but just kind of fill us in.
Well, when I came out of college, my first job, I was an insurance adjuster in Connecticut. I got a license. I got my license as an insurance adjuster. I was terrible at it. Like I was one of the worst adjusters I had to be. And I did that for a few years. It was my first job. It was very corporate. I worked for a company called J. Neal McDonald Companies in Hamden, and they helped me get my adjuster's license. And I did personal lines, and then I left them and I went to work for Covenant States in Hartford, that became some other big insurance outfit.
Yeah. And
I ended up getting fired from there because I was just a terrible adjuster. Like I just didn't understand the game, right? Like I was like, if people send me their if they have a mechanic that they like and they had an accident, they sent me their, whatever you call it, their this is how much it costs to get it done. I would just pay that.
The appraisal.
And my boss is like, "No, you're giving away money. Oh, you have to make them go. You send them to our people, and you send them, and you get 3 appraisals, and you take the lowest one." And I said, "But the lowest one doesn't fix their car." I mean, it was just I was terrible. So I got fired. And I realized that corporate life was just not for me. So I was a volunteer anyway. So I was volunteering. I started volunteering at rape crises. I started volunteering at rape crises. My sister was doing an internship, I believe. And she's like, "Come and do some rape crisis work." And so I went and I got trained and became a rape crisis counselor as a volunteer. And I liked it so much they hired me as an associate director. And I would staff the hotline and train police officers and go on calls at night if somebody was raped and go to the hospital with them. All those kinds of things. Walk them through the system. And it really was pivotal for me because up until that point, Jeff, I had never worked on my own incest, trafficking issues, abuse issues. I had never worked on them. I never sought therapy. I never did any of that. So working with women who were raped helped me work through my issues and helped me find a therapeutic outlet setting to help to help understand what had happened to me. So it really was serendipitous that I worked there, and that I worked there for a period of time that helped me heal a lot of brokenness that was in me. I mean, it really did make a tremendous difference. And by this time, I was a grown woman. I was already a grown up, and so that was very helpful. And so I did that for a while. I was a volunteer at the AIDS Project and got hired at the AIDS Project to be a associate director there, doing the care and cuisine at the height of the AIDS epidemic, delivering meals to people who were sick and shut in. And then I left there and went to New York to work for Essence and a PR guru, a well-known PR person, and came back, met my husband, got married, worked other kinds of nonprofit jobs, and then ran Jumpstart for young kids. Got to go to the White House, stood in the Oval Office, and then got a job at the Housing Authority. And that's when I made very bad decisions. When I went to work for the Housing Authority under a nonprofit that they created, Alliance for Strong Communities, I found myself at home in financial disarray. They were paying me a nice penny, but I had poor financial habits.
Were you with your husband? Were you still with your husband at that point?
Yes, I was married. Yes, we were married. And he was making money. I was making good money. We were making good money. We were just poor stewards of our resources. I mean, we were just poor stewards. And I think we were living way above our means. And so I started embezzling funds, thinking that I could, first it started with, I'll just take enough money until I get my paycheck. And then when I get my paycheck, I will put it back. And, it's a snowball effect. You never really put it back because the need becomes greater and greater and greater and greater, and we were trying to buy a house and our finances wasn't in order. And so I was embezzling money to try to pay off debt so that we could buy a house. I really was, we were just really I was just really in a very bad place, and had no real sense of, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I just thought I would have time to sort of repair and fix. And by the time it all came out, I never got the opportunity to repair. Once I was caught, I just said, yes, this is what I was doing. And so I was elected to office at the time, and I wasn't elected to. I had left the housing authority. I had the choice of leaving the housing authority or being fired, and so I left the housing authority and started working at adult ed. Got a job at adult ed because I was elected to office at this point, and I was a police commissioner before I was elected to office. And so when it all came out, I was fired from adult ed. I had all the stuff that I was doing. The forensic audit came out that I had indeed embezzled not quite $50,000. So it wasn't a hell of a lot of money, but it was enough to get the attention of the feds. So it was a very difficult time. I had to resign from office. It was very public. I was on the front page.
And you were an alderman, right? An elder person? Alderman.
Yeah, I was an alderman. I was on my second term. I was halfway through my second term.
This is New Haven?
This is New Haven. And it was very painful. It was very humiliating and
very public.
Very public. I knew it was coming. When I saw a second term. I knew that the feds were investigating, but they were dragging their feet, and so it seemed like they weren't really interested in um, pursuing it.
Hmm.
But there were people who was concerned that my star was rising on the political front
Yeah.
and pressed
Hmm.
the feds to like, well, listen, we want to know where this, this needs to move forward.
I'm always interested in that period before the bottom falls out, because
Yes,
it's like you don't really know what to do. I mean,
right.
in my case, for example, I was lawyering, and so I knew that things were gonna things were gonna end in a year and a half or however long it was. But do you take on new cases?
Right.
Do you,
Like I didn't know what to do either.
yeah,
Yes, Jeff. Like, do I stop? Like, do I not run for the second term?
yeah,
Like, do I go away? I think in hindsight, if I had to do it all over again, I would not have run for a second term.
yeah.
I would have been a recluse. And then it wouldn't have been so much in the paper. It would have just been a footnote rather than a full on front page day after day kind of thing.
Well, maybe it would have been what it would have been, but the thing is, you don't know what to do.
I don't think it would have been because I wouldn't have been a big deal. No one would have
Yeah,
cared.
yeah. But the denial is huge, and the trauma is huge, and it's so hard. And you can't trust other people with the information.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know how I got through those times. I lived with a great deal of fear that it was coming.
Yeah,
So that was very stressful.
yeah.
It was very stressful. It was stressful in my marriage. That really was the thing that broke the marriage. My then husband could not live. He couldn't live with the embarrassment of it and the stress of it. Uh, and
Did
a
you
lot of other too.
did you have any kids at that point?
Yes, we had 4 children.
But
They were very young.
all right, so tell everybody the circumstances that you came to have 4 children.
Other than the birds and the bees. No, my children. We adopted children. We adopted 4 children. Um, uh, uh, we adopted 4 children, and 2 boys and 2 girls.
Hmm.
And so we were in the process of adopting the very last child
Hmm.
when all this kicked off. And we were in danger of losing that child, right?
Hmm.
But there
Sure.
was a possibility that they were like, we might have to take this child out of this house. But we had really good workers who knew us and were like, no, we're not going to take this child out of this house. This is what happens to families, and you're a family, and um,
Well, were you
you know,
were you fostering the kids first?
well, we in Connecticut, you have to be a foster parent, but whatever child we took, we were their foster parent um, with the path to adoption.
Yeah.
So we didn't have different kids. Whatever kid came to our house, that's the kid we would choose to adopt. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
so there weren't other kids. It was just the kids that we were adopting that were our foster kids first.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
so now the stuff has come down, and does Norm represent you? Is that what happened?
so so I didn't have an attorney. I at that time I didn't have an attorney. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any money. Somebody came to me and said, I'm not going to say who came to me, but people were kind enough to say, we got you an attorney
Hmm.
who will do this pro bono or
Hmm.
will do this. And so I went and met with him, and
So
I liked him right off the bat.
this is Norm Pattis, just so everyone knows.
Now, I had talked to other attorneys before I got to Norm.
Hmm.
I didn't go to Norm. Somebody brought me to Norm. I was on my own trying to find somebody who would take this case,
Hmm.
who would take it. I was really just, I just really didn't know what to do. You
Hmm.
need a criminal attorney. And I was just like, oh, and you need a criminal attorney who knows something about federal stuff.
Yep.
So somebody brought me to him, and a prominent person in the community brought me to him, and so we met, and he just decided that he liked me well enough to take my case. And we're still friends. We became friends, and we are still friends. So he took my case and walked me through the process, and tried to keep me relaxed and calm. And he's like, I'm gonna try to keep you out of jail. And then he was like, well, at the most you could do is 15 months. The least you could do is probably 10 months. That's what we were working on. We were working on, 10 months, maximum 15 months, or maybe a little bit more. And so I was planning for that. And man, that was stressful because my children were very, very little.
Yeah.
We had to take them out of their school and put them in a different school. There was so many things that you had to prepare for.
Yeah.
And so when I finally did get sentenced, it turned out to be 29 days.
Yeah. I just want to just make a little note here, because Norm Pattis is a very polarizing guy. He takes on, a lot of high profile cases like Fotis Dulos and Alex Jones and a lot more. And if anybody saw him on Jackie Polverari's podcast last month, you definitely saw some of the things that motivate him and his sense of justice and egalitarianism and how he strived to do the right thing. Whether or not you agree with what he's done, you can see that he's a complex guy who's really tried to fight for people who need it in a non-judgmental way. But here we have a story of someone who he did it pro bono, right? So that is really not every lawyer is so anxious to take on pro bono cases.
No. No.
It's about money, cash.
No. And I will be forever grateful.
Yeah.
Forever grateful because he did me a kindness, and I really think he made the difference in the time that I got. Because I got 30 days. I served 29, and so I got 29. I got 30 days, 5 months house arrest, and 3 years of supervised release.
So you went to Danbury, right?
Yes, I went to Danbury Federal Prison Camp, and oh my God, it's like damn near 15 years ago, but it just seems.
How many women were in the camp when you went there?
I don't even know. I want to say less than 100, maybe 150. I think you can only have about 200 women in there to click. I think.
Yeah.
So somewhere around between 200 and below.
Right now during COVID, there's only 30 women in there.
Really?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did they move them around, or what did they do?
Well, part of it was a result of that lawsuit that the Quinnipiac.
That's right.
Quinnipiac law people brought, but but we know a couple of the women who are in there now. They're members of our white collar support group. And and it's pretty barren there.
So I got there. I met Beatrice Codiani, who is my friend to this day.
Yeah.
She's from New Haven, and she was she had got caught up in some Latin King mess, and she had already served, I don't know, like 20 years or something or other. When I got there,
was Piper in there at the time?
Oh, she was gone before I got there.
Oh yeah.
She was gone before I got there.
Mm-hmm.
So I became friends with Beatrice, and we became friends. I I haven't talked to her in a minute, but when I got out, we were seeing each other pretty regularly for lunch and brunch.
She just
Oh,
celebrated her 70th birthday.
yeah, I need to catch up with her because I
Yeah.
haven't talked to her in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I enjoy her so much. But I knew her before.
Yeah.
But when I got there, she was one of the friendly. She was waiting for me, and she had the New Haven Register with my picture on the front page. And she was just like, "You're gonna be all right here." She's like, "You've done some good. You've done enough good in the world where you're gonna be all right." She's
She,
like, just do your time, stay out of trouble."
she brought
And I
you
did.
she brought you your shower shoes, a set of shower shoes, toothbrush.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, I I was petrified about going because when you're on the outside, you hear all the stereotypical things about what could happen to you there,
Yeah.
and none of that was true.
Yeah, of course.
I, it, it felt like, I never got out of the dorm the group room
Mm-hmm.
situation because I was there. I wasn't there long enough to get assigned to a room.
Yeah.
I wasn't there long enough to really be intaked in fully. So it just felt like a very like a dorm experience on steroids, except with like guards with guns, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was an amazing 29 days,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't have been treated nicer. And while I was there, I met women who I think one of the most profound experiences I had was I was with women who couldn't read, and they were getting letters from their children. And so I would sit on the bed and read their letters to them, and then I would write their children back for them. And they started gifting me with um, licorice because they found out that I couldn't have like candy because I have a dairy allergy.
Mm-hmm.
So they would give me contraband as a way to say thank you for helping them. I couldn't understand it. Somebody had to explain it to me because I was like freaking out. I was like, is somebody coming on to me? They were like, no, dummy. They're just trying to thank you for helping them, read their children's letters and read letters from whatever. And so that's what I spent my time doing in there. Reading letters and writing letters,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in the library and helping people understand what they were reading and,
Mm-hmm.
letters from their attorneys, because there's nobody to help you do that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I did so that's how I spent my time and reading books. I read a book a day because there was nothing else for me to do. I wasn't there long enough to be assigned a job.
Did
So
your
my time was really my own.
did your kids visit you when you were in there?
So I made the decision early on not to have my children visit.
Mm-hmm.
What I did do though, when I found out my number, you get your inmate number,
Register number.
my registered number. I made up labels for my friends and family with
Oh.
my name and number, and gave them out to people so they could write me, like my church family. I gave it to my then husband so that the children could write me, and he would take their letters and put them in an envelope and stick the sticker on it and mail it to me. That's how I got the letters. And then I would mail my letters back to them in an envelope so that they would never see that it was from prison.
Yeah.
And they would never mail it to prison. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Oh, so
they just put like mom,
so your
and then
kids
he would put it in the envelope. So
your
they
kids
didn't know.
your
And
kids
they
didn't know
know
you were in
now,
prison?
but they
Yeah.
didn't know. No, they didn't know. They just thought I was away on a work trip because they were little.
That
They were little.
that's what Lynn and her ex told Skylar. That's what they told her. I was away on business. When I was away for a year, I'm sure she started to think, Jeff's away a long time.
But little kids, time is irrelevant. Like
Yeah.
a day is a year is 2 minutes. I mean, it isn't. And so that kind of, they know now because my children are all adults.
Yeah.
They know now. But I didn't think that was in their best interest to tell them.
Yeah.
When they're like 6 and 7 years old and 10 years old. I mean, it didn't. And it wasn't that I was ashamed. I just didn't have enough time to process that with them.
Mm-hmm.
So people around us kept up, respected my wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And chipped in. My church family was amazing. I mean, they
Yeah.
really were amazing. They helped Lawrence with dinners, and they helped. My friends helped, and sorority sisters helped. Everybody helped the best that they could. So I never missed a beat. So when I got out, I went in October 1st. I got out October 29th. By Halloween, I was taking my kids trick or treating. I didn't miss a beat.
What church were you going to back then? It wasn't Redeemer. Where?
Redeemer.
Was it Redeemer?
Yeah, it was Redeemer. That was my church for 20 years.
I know.
Yeah, that was my church.
We're still pining for Redeemer, right?
I know. They sold the building, got sold, and it's going to be apartments.
Really?
Yeah, because we made a decision to shut down our church. We have doled out our endowment to sister churches, and people have found other church homes, and yeah.
So where are Rochelle and Maryland now?
I don't know where Maryland. I think Maryland is fully retired now.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's really retired from ministry. Rochelle was she was at Hartford for a minute, but she just taken on another church somewhere in Connecticut. She just taken on another church.
Yeah, I read about
like
it.
An interim. Yeah. So, but I follow her on Facebook, so I stay on top of what she's doing.
Yeah.
And her kids are grown up, just like my kids are grown up, and they're all graduated from college. So, yeah.
All right. So now you come out of prison and you're home, and you got to remake your life, and things with Lawrence. Are you two split up at this point, or?
Oh yeah. Well, we split up before I went in. He moved out he moved back in to care for the children.
Yeah.
While I was away, but he had left. He left before I was sentenced. Although he did come with me to sentencing, he had moved out. It was stressful. So, and then, I was in bankruptcy court, criminal court, and divorce court all.
That's ugly.
I was in all the courts of the land, all at once. Oh my God.
So draw the line between where you are there and then becoming editor of Inner City News, and how you start to blossom in your public life.
I had worked for the Inner City News. They're like 30 years old. So I came to them year 2, and they're in their second year of operation. So I've been with them on and off for these 30 years, you know. And so when I came out, I didn't have a job. I couldn't find a job. It was one of those things where nobody would return your call. No one wants to know you. You're damaged. Nobody wants you around. So I didn't have a job. So my girlfriend owned a bookstore. So she let me work at her bookstore to satisfy my my probation employment requirement.
Yeah.
Which was nice. And she paid me a little bit of money to run her bookstore, which was a godsend. And then I ran into my friend John Thomas, who owns the Inner City newspaper.
Yeah.
I ran into him in the post office, and he was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Wait, you need a job?" I was like, "Do I need a job?" He's like, "Listen, come by and see me. We can talk about this." I was like, "Okay." And so I went by to see him. He's like, I could really use you. Like, if you have time, if you feel up to it. I was like, I need a job, and I don't really care what you need me to do. If you can pay me, that would be good. He's like, yeah, I can pay. I can't pay you what you're worth. He's like, but I could put something in your pocket. And that's just been it. And so I've been there ever since. I mean, I've had a relationship with him for 30 years, but I've been there for like the last, however long I've been out, 15 years, I guess, 10, 15, I don't know, however long.
Over at 50 Fitch, upstairs from the parole office. That's how people know that building.
Yeah, well, they're gone, but...
parole's gone?
Yeah, they've been gone. They've been gone. some different people own the building now. So I started there. I had already started. I was a blogger, so I already was beginning my online presence. I had a couple of blogs that were, pretty popular. And so I was making friends in the internet world.
Yeah.
Because I had pretty much exiled myself from city life, from being seen in the city. No one saw me. I didn't do anything or go anywhere. I was pretty much, just an internet presence, and I had popular blogs. So that's how I was known. And then I just started.
Was that the first Love Babz blog?
Love Babz. Yes, the first Love Babz blog, and then I started doing Love Babz Love Talk on the internet.
Yeah, right.
I started doing that, and Paul Bass, who was always a friend of mine, knew that I was doing this internet radio thing and was interested in it, and he had said to me, I'm applying to the FCC for a community radio, and if I get it, I want you to come and do what you do over here. So that was a few years out, and I hadn't thought anything else about it. I just said yes because it's Paul.
No,
we had a real.
No, but the justice imperative came before the conversation with Paul, didn't it?
Yeah.
No. Oh no.
No. It was at the same time. The radio station just didn't. We had a conversation about the radio station, but it didn't happen until after justice imperative.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. So describe the justice imperative and Malta Justice and that book coming out, and that because that's how you and I
didn't even know how I don't know how I got called into that. How did I get called into that? Well, I think it was Maryland.
No, well, what happened is that they wanted to invite 30 community editors that were from academics and nonprofits.
How did they find me?
I don't know how they found me either. I don't know.
I think Maryland. I think it was Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland was on there. And so with John Santa and the Malta Justice Imperative people were writing a book called The Justice Imperative, which was going to be the
Connecticut's answer or response to Michelle Alexander's book.
Exactly. And it was going to be the state of criminal justice in Connecticut with a lot of takeaways. And Brian Moran at Robertson and Cole wound up being the chief writer of the book. But it was mostly done at John Santa's direction, not the book itself, but the whole movement. And they pulled us all together. And so there's maybe 30 editors. And that's where you and I met.
Yes.
And we look around and there's like 30 people in this room and on a criminal justice book. And you and I are the only ones who've been to prison. Right. So we bonded pretty quick.
Yeah. No, we did. And then he took over their blog and they didn't like what we did. But I thought, I think if they would have just really left us alone, they would have really gotten an amazing audience. Yeah. They didn't understand the internet at all. They didn't understand this. I mean, they really could have positioned themselves to be a voice. I'm telling you, I still thought that was a very prolific thing. They wanted it to be more local, but I was like, you can't be local until you branch out and see what other people are doing, and then bring it in, and then so that local people can see what other people are doing, so that they too can believe that they can do some of this around the issues that people were doing. People were doing some amazing stuff around the country around reentry, and Connecticut just wasn't on par with some of these places that were doing innovative, cool stuff. I mean, it just wasn't. And so, and we were really working hard, Jeff, to just show, look what people are doing around the country around reentry and incarceration, and the conversations and the think pieces that were out there. And they just was not feeling it. And I was like, how can you not be feeling this? Do you know what you could do with, allowing us to, corral this content, to curate this content, they didn't see the value in it,
Well,
which was unfortunate.
we were having a lot of conversations with people in Oakland and Philadelphia, and
Right.
people were on the cutting edge, and they wanted us to come into the conversation. They needed us as much as we needed them. And I guess that's not really the way that the justice imperative saw it. But I'm still grateful to them. I'm grateful.
Oh no, I'm very grateful because it got us thinking about how we could be in these conversations and what was needed. And so Criminal Justice Insider was born, right? Like,
yeah. I remember sitting around with you saying, we should do a radio show about this.
Yeah.
And then what happened is that you went off to start your Love Babz radio show at WNHH. And what year was that?
I don't know. It's been 4 years, so
yeah, so 2016 in there somewhere. And at about the same time, roughly, I became the CEO, executive director of Family Reentry.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it wasn't that many months after that where.
Nope, it wasn't.
No. It was like right around then we came together and we said, we might have something here.
And we did.
And we launched the radio show.
And it worked out good. Like I thought, I still think it's a good vehicle. People respect it and admire it and like it. And we've had good conversations. And I just love it because there's nobody else having conversations with this community.
No.
I mean, there's nobody. I mean, people will have some of these people on as guests, but our focus is about this community.
Yeah.
And having these conversations about what is going on in these communities, what is going on in this community around, what are these people doing? Who is doing what in these incarceration conversations and reentry, and legislatively. That's real.
What I think helped kick it off was that our first two guests were Robin Porter, the Connecticut legislator, and Scott Semple, who was then the Connecticut Commissioner of Corrections. And we didn't even know what we were going to do, really. We were just kicking it off, Babz. And we said to both of them, we really want you to tell your personal stories. Remember that? We want people to connect on a personal level. And then Robin Porter, because she's a friend of yours, and she's sitting there in our studio, and she starts talking about her son who's incarcerated and how difficult it was as a Black woman raising a male son to not get killed on the streets, and how she succeeded or failed as a mother. And she made it so personal. And to this day, people ask me about the Robin Porter interview. And she was our first one.
Yeah.
And then the second one, Scott Semple came on, and he talked about the death of his son at, I think, age 14. And before Matt died from cancer, Scott had been offered the job as Commissioner of Corrections, and he didn't know if he wanted to take the job because his son and his wife, Krista, were in that moment. And they told him, they said, Dad, we need you to do this. This is important. You can help a lot of people. And people were crying listening to this. And I said, wow, there are stories out there, Babz. I mean, there are people involved in all aspects of criminal justice that their stories are just not.
I mean, I think it's the beauty of this, and there's no end to it, right? Like, as long as there are people coming in and out of prison, there's going to be stories that ought to be heard, that we humanize people. And not just people coming in and out of prison, but everybody who works in the prison complex system,
Yeah.
or anybody who has their hands in the prison complex system, which, if you're a legislator or a case manager or a probation officer or a nonprofit, all these hands, or people who have criminal justice academic programs,
Yeah.
right?
And,
You
and,
know,
and I have to admit, I think we got lucky in a way that it was a time of such great change and budgetary constraints, and people were trying to find their way through to resources that were changing rapidly. And even still, they're right now, who even knows what programs and resources are available for people coming out of prison now with COVID and retraction of government programs because of lack of money. And I don't know about you, but I feel honored to give them a voice. I
I
feel,
do too.
yeah,
I mean, I find this to be rewarding, and I don't really have ambitious thoughts of making this bigger than what it is or whatever. I think the richness is, as long as we stay authentic to the conversations, and authentic to highlighting people, and we're not exploiting people. And I don't feel like we do exploit
no,
anyone or their story. And we talk to all kinds of people, from people who make the rules to people who break the rules. Uh,
wait, I got to write that one down. That's a good one.
I mean, we just do. And everything in between. I mean, that's what makes us necessary, and needed in terms of what we do. We give, giving people opportunity to talk about a matter that affects us all. I mean, it just touches us all.
So Babz, where I want to go in this last segment before we kind of close up is, so you went from someone who came home from prison and you were kind of in isolation, sitting at inner city news, and you hadn't reintegrated with New Haven or Connecticut. And now you're like the most popular person in New Haven and Connecticut, which is true, right? So how does that happen? Because you're on the boards of arts programs and children's programs and your sorority, and everywhere I look there's and Next Haven, and you're doing speaking engagements, and so so I don't think you instantly became an extrovert. I think that that's how you lived your life. And then you had this time period that you had to kind of be compacted. And now you're reliving your authentic life. So tell us what you're doing out there and how you're connecting with the whole community and how that makes you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I am an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. I'm an extrovert. Um, my self-exile was my own doing, but it was necessary because I had a self-worth issue after I came out of prison. I didn't feel worthy to be in community, and I was so ashamed. I mean, I was woefully ashamed, woefully ashamed. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't think people wanted to see me, and so I just thought I would just stay out of the public view. Now I don't feel that way. I believe in service to my community. I believe I still have something good to offer. I believe I have some talent to give, to things, and I love being in the mix of art and intellect. I love it, and so that's how I get to do all the things, because I enjoy them and I have some talent for it. Um, and I think I'm when the judge said, go back when you finish, serve your time, and then go back and get your life back. This is me getting my life back. Like, this is my getting my life back
So,
and doing the things.
so give the list of the nonprofits that you're involved in. I know you're embarrassed to do it, but I think that it's really important for people who are going through this to understand that most of your biography now is stuff that happened after prison, right? Like if there's the Babz right? If there's the Babz biography, 90% of it is stuff that happened after prison. So when people go through criminal justice problems, they think their life is over.
Yeah.
And
it's not over.
So, I mean, I want you to tell people right now, like, what you're involved in, and that people are seeking you out to be on their programs, not really the other way around. I've seen it with you. Like, you get a call, Babz, will you do this? Right?
I serve on Common Ground High School board. My children came to that school. It is an urban farm school rooted in environmental justice kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I chair that board. I'm a co-chair of that board. I'm on the Long Wharf Theater board. I'm on the Planned Parenthood.
Long Wharf Theater that's just got a bunch of money to be able to keep their doors open, right?
Yes, we did. I serve on the Planned Parenthood of Southern New England, which is Connecticut and Rhode Island. I'm on that board. I'm on the Arts Council of Greater New Haven board. Mm-hmm. I am a member of the New Haven alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And I think that's it.
And the most recent one, or maybe not the most recent one, but the most visible one, is you're a member of the Grade 8.
Yes, I'm a member of the Grade 8, which is a wonderful honor.
All right, so here's a little Grade 8 story. So they were looking for the 8 inaugural what's it called? Inductees for the Connecticut Hall of Change, which is basically a Connecticut Criminal Justice Hall of Fame, people who've been successful after prison. And it was put together by Charlie Grady, who has a long history of service in the community. Amongst other things, he's the Connecticut FBI reentry and outreach person, but a lot of other things too, a lot. And playwright. Well, we've had him on Criminal Justice Insider. I'm not going to speak too much about credit. And he called me up after the applications were put in. He called me up and he said, "I want to tell you that Babz has been named one of the inaugural inductees, but we don't want to tell her yet. We don't want to tell her, and you can't tell anybody. But we're going to have a big dinner, or we're going to have a big ceremony, and Babz is going to get surprised." And I said, "Well, look, we'll put you guys on the radio. We'll make a whole thing out of this." And they had these plans, and Lynn and I were like freaking out, like we were so excited for you. And then COVID happens, and everything is shut down, right? And Charlie's going, we can't do the induction ceremony, we can't do the dinner, we can't do this. Ultimately, you did get inducted along with some 7 other beautiful people who, all of whom we know. I mean, it's incredible.
All of whom we know.
and all of whom I think have been on the radio show. So it's and what a beautiful moment, just to celebrate not just you and your accomplishments and the others and their accomplishments, but like a gathering of the community, celebration.
It's so needed because when you listen, when you come through all that we have all come through, you're not thinking anybody's going to give you an award for a damn thing ever again. You are not thinking that anybody's going to give you a high five or praise. And so to get an award at this point, it's a beautiful thing. And it's enough to give people hope and to reaffirm that they're on the right path. That's how I take it, you know.
Yeah. And
to get an award.
So you got this beautiful Lucite Award.
Yes. And I got a jacket and swag.
and they did the unveiling of the plaque at which prison was it?
Somewhere. I gotta go. I want to, when the weather gets better, I want to drive up and see it.
Old Gate, East Gate, the prison from like 250 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I would love to go see it.
So, in closing, Babz, why don't you just give a few words of inspiration for everyone? Because you're such an important part of the fabric of the criminal justice community, not just in Connecticut, but also nationally. And you're wise, you know. I mean, you help out so many people. So maybe you can just give a few words of inspiration, and then if anybody wants to contact you, how would they do that?
Well, people can always you can always catch me on my email, mediababs@gmail. So you can always catch me there. You can always find Love Babz Love Talk on Facebook and Instagram, or you can find me on Instagram. So I mean, I can be found. I'm not. You just walk down the street in New Haven and scream my name, and you'll find me. I'm not hard. Like, I'm not hiding.
I know you're on Instagram, man.
I know, right? Although Jeff, you got more social media game than I do.
Yeah, but you take the best selfie in the business.
I think the only words of wisdom and encouragement that I can give people is that they're the darkest moments when you think this is it. It is not it. Like, that is not the end. Like, when you feel at your most broken and you think, I can't go on. Yeah, you can. You can go on. You can. You must. You should. You shall. And you will. I learned that because when you're in those hard moments, you think they're going to go on forever. And this is all there is. And they don't. I mean, life is really sweet right now. Do I have everything I need? No. Am I without challenges? No. But man, oh man, how far I have come. So I think people have to give their own self grace. You know, the world is not going to give you grace, but you have to give your own self grace.
I think the more you give yourself grace, the more the world can give you grace.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, I love when you said earlier that you were in your self-imposed exile, because that's the truth. I mean, we're our own harshest critics.
Yes, yeah. We are.
Yeah,
and won't ask for help. You know, won't reach out. You know, we'll just drown. And you got to ask for help, because I think that's the first step in redemption, is the asking for help. Really, that's one of the first rungs on that ladder, to ask for help. And so I would encourage people, whoever watches this, it may feel daunting and painful now, but it will not always be so if you have a path, have a plan for where you want to go. Or an idea, and you don't have to have it fully materialized. Like, you don't have to know fully where you want to end up. You just have to know that forward is where you want to go.
Yeah, there you go. Babz, thank you for being on White Collar Week. I'm so happy, and you know how we have to end this segment. We have to end our segment the same way we end Criminal Justice Insider, right? And that's with "Love you, Babz."
Love you, Jeff. Thank you so much. God bless criminal White Collar Week. I hope it just keeps growing.
Thank you, Babz. I love you.
Love you too. Say hi to Lynn.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you for joining us on White Collar Week, sponsored by Progressive Prison Ministries. You can learn more about us on our website, prisonist.org. That's prisonist, like feminist. And please remember to rate, review, and share this podcast so that families suffering in silence can find us if they need us. See you next time.